I'm doing well. How are you too?
I'm doing great. Thank you for obliging us this interview. So I'll start by asking you why our finance minister decided not to ask for more money, but decided basically to adjust the figures a little. What went into that decision from your pitch?
Okay, so let me say that we need to commend the Minister of Finance for this decision. Because if you look at historically,
Mm,
it's not usual of an NDC government to ask for supplementary budget taken from 2013 to 2026.
mm,
We have never asked for a supplementary budget within half of a year. This is because our budget that is presented in November of the preceding year always reflect the truth. It always reflects things that we can achieve. So as a result of that, nothing takes us by surprise. Even under force majeure situations like we experienced under Ebola, we never sought for a mid-year revision of the budget. So I have to put that on record.
mm,
So this is not unusual of an NDC government. What is strikingly important is that from 2017 to 2024, the NPP administration approached the mid-year review to ask for supplementary budget in 2019 and 2020. Interestingly, even in 2018, where they did not ask for a supplementary budget, they introduced tax measures like the luxury vehicle tax in 2018. And in 2022, they also introduced new tax measures, even though they didn't ask for more budget, but they did budget revision by introducing COVID-19 levy. That has been the tradition of an MPP government and not an NDC government. So our strategy is always to project what is feasible and achievable. And that's why we do not ask for supplementary budget.
fantastic. Now I'm going to quote from the address. He says real disposable incomes declined sharply, interest rates surged, making credit expensive for the private sector, investor confidence collapsed, international reserves fell, blah, blah, blah. Basically, because some element of recklessness was carried out or was a direct fallout of that situation that he described. For me, why do successive governments fail to take people to task when they occasion the kinds of choices about reckless spending, excessive and binge borrowing, choices about lack of accountability, and failure to level with the good people of Ghana about the true state of the economy? How come nobody gets taken to task when they occasion some of these things from your perspective or pitch as a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament?
I think that the greatest way of taking accountability for choices of successive government has been at the pool. I think that is the greatest lesson political parties learn. That when you take bad decisions that delivers bad and terrible outcomes, you will be punished at the polls. Also, there are accountability measures that have been enshrined under the Public Financial Management Act. And I think various governments have tried their best to hold leaders accountable for reckless decisions. It might not be enough, but I think that we overall we are not doing bad in terms of taking leadership through accountability test. And the greatest test for me is always what is reflected at the poll at the end of every 4. Because at the end of the 4 years, you display your scorecard and people tick the box. So when people are not comfortable with your scorecard, then they show you an exit. And that is the loudest way of communicating to you that Ghanaians are dissatisfied with your service. And fortunately, the IMF has given us indicative matrices for you to access even before the polls when decisions are made recklessly or not. They have given indicators about 7 that you must take and assess yourself based on that. And when you are doing well, you don't even need the citizens to know that these are good decisions that you are taking. For example, the IMF first scorecard is that you must achieve macroeconomic stability. In their own assessment in May this year, the IMF, they have assessed Ghana to be strong. And what they define as strength is because of the strong and robust economic growth that we are seeing, because the growth is not an oil engineered growth, but a non-oil growth rate that excludes the oil sector, because Ghana do not have a lot of current interest in the extractive sector. They look at the inflation that is within the 8 to 10% inflation band, currently around 5%. They look at your fiscal deficit, they look at your external indicators, and then they look at improved macroeconomic stability and the financial market. And in all that, IMF said, we are strong. The second credit card that they use is your fiscal credibility. And IMF says, we are strong. How do they do that? Look at the rating agencies. What is their verdict on Ghana now? Every investor wants to choose Ghana as a trading destination. Every rating agency, the sovereign rating agencies, have given Ghana positive outlook with a stable macroeconomic environment. That's the scorecard in terms of fiscal credibility. It means that all government revenue measures and expenditure measures are credible and achievable. And as we speak, international banks are chasing Ghana with loanable funds because Ghana now has a strong balance sheet. That is a good scorecard for us. You look at their sustainability. Are you able to mobilize the needed revenue to pay your recurring expenditure and legacy debt? The scorecard from the IMF is saying that it is improving strongly. Why? We inherited an economy that was, President Akufo-Addo alone borrowed more than 13 presidents combined since First Republic for moving the total public debt from 120 billion to 761 billion. Now we have, without even making repayments alone, as a result of improved macroeconomic conditions, as a result of the domestic debt exchange program and the external sector in terms of fluctuations in our exchange rate, we have made a reduction from the 761 down to 647 billion. This indicates improves, we are on the trajectory of their sustainability. And that's why they are saying that it is improving strongly. The IMF also talked about real sector transformation. And their verdict is that we are moderate. And what do they use to measure? Agricultural performance. Currently, agri is growing. Industrial base is growing. The services sector is growing. Mining is growing because of the board. And many other interventions in the real sector that we have invested monies into. So when you look at overall and social spending, what are we spending on education? What are we spending on health? Every district assembly, as we speak, have more than 2 completed chiefs now, 2 educational facilities, 10 boreholes, and many other development infrastructure across the country. When citizens begin to see this, they don't even need the IMF scorecard. They know that this is a good government, and then they will reflect it in the mandate extension of the NDC government. And that's why I'm comforted that the Constitution might not give you year-on-year platforms as citizens to demand accountability, but the Ghanaian public always have, at the end of the 4 years, the ultimate accountability test. And that is what is important for us as a government.
Fantastic. Now, let me engage you a little bit more on the discussion of the IMF. So, each time we go to the IMF, they come in, they streamline things, they give us a healthy scorecard, they leave us on our own, and then a few years down the line, you find us going back to them. What are the guarantees that this time around we can say that we've severed ties with the IMF for good, and that going forward, Ghanaians will never have to wake up to hear that our government is going back to the IMF cup in hand again?
Well, what I'll say is that I am not a fan of saying that Ghana should never approach the IMF, because Ghana has signed onto an IMF program. and we are a member of the IMF. So if you are a member of an institution, there's no way you say you won't do any engagement with them. What I will not agree is for Ghana to go for an ECF facility, that's the extended credit facility, as a result of the fact that we are having balance of payment problems. So approach the IMF when the country is strong. So you can go for technical support, you can go for transfer of knowledge, or you can go for a PCI facility, which is a non-financing arrangement, so that you improve credibility and make sure that businesses and investors trust you. But don't go at your weakest point and commit this country into reckless borrowing from the IMF and place Ghana in an economy where investors do not longer trust us. That is the situation where I will never want Ghana to go back to them again in terms of seeking an ECF facility. Aside that, I am okay if Ghana is going to an IMF for technical support. So I want to place that distinction. Now, if you look at other governments, we may do all these things with the right safeguards, and a future government will come and the program 10 o'clock. You have the settlement. Hello?
Yes, sir, we're listening to you.
Yes, I'm saying that a certain government can come, and its objective is to always do what we call an expansionary expenditure program, meaning that even if they are not raising enough revenue, they will still go ahead and commit the country. That will require them to borrow excessively. And one of the primary reasons why countries go for an IMF program is because of balance of payment deficits or fiscal deficit. So situations like that, you'll be compelled to approach the IMF because you will lose credibility when you go into the capital market to borrow, when you go into your domestic market to borrow, because you always borrow at higher terms. So you need somebody to bring punitive and corrective measures for you to offenses. And that is what I want to plead with successive government. Let's follow the Private Financial Management Act. Let's live within our means. What will it profit a man to subject the millions of Ghanaians to painful and hurtful decisions like we saw under the domestic debt exchange program as a result of our human negligence, as a result of our ostentatious life, and as a result of incompetence and indisciplined fiscal management? What will it profit us as a country? So this should be a guiding principle for voters. Anytime they are voting, they must make sure that they ask the critical question: what is the record of these parties in terms of making sure that they live within our means? What is the record of this government in terms of debt accumulation? What is the record of this government in terms of creating sustainable jobs? These are the matrices that Ghanaians should ask themselves before voting. Once we do that, I can assure you, Ghana will not return to an IMF program on our knees.
All right. Well, I have a reservation with your position on our engagements with the IMF because I've seen that the young man up north, Traore, is investing our $2 billion in his economy, and he's not going for a single cent from anybody. But that's another discussion for another occasion. What for you is the biggest takeaway from this media review delivery from our finance minister?
I think before I answer that, I'm not saying that we should go for IMF for borrowing. I'm saying that let's go for an IMF program that is on technical support. Right now, Ghana is on a PCI program, but we are not getting a dime from IMF. We are not being compulsory mandated to implement anything. What we are just doing is we are committed to following our reforms that we have started. And that is what I'm talking about. Go for
Honorable, this is deja vu. This discussion about IMF is a deja vu because it sounds The script sounds familiar. It's the same thing. We've heard it over and over and over again. Next thing, we're going back to them. But as I said,
I pray we don't go back to them at the wrong time.
fair enough.
Now, the greatest takeaway from yesterday from me is the magnanimity and humility of the minister. The minister was able to highlight some challenges that still persist. So this is an honest accounting. You don't just present the somehow good side and then ignore the challenges. So they approached the House to indicate some of the challenges that the government of Ghana is facing presently and the threats. Then the second takeaway for me is the Women's Development Bank issue. Because I am an MP also, and I know the much anticipation by our constituents to the full implementation of the Women's Development Bank. And I was very happy when the minister was stated and committed himself to the fact that we will get it operational by the end of this year. That's also a great takeaway for me. And then the overall takeaway is the fact that we did not ask for any additional money. What we rather saw was a realignment and reallocation of goods and services in other ministries that do not require urgent attention to deal with pressing and immediate problems. And I think that is a smart way of running an economy that is prone to several challenges like what we saw in Accra in June concerning the floods. That was a human-face intervention. Ghana, unlike other countries, before you spend $1 or a cedi, it goes through several stages of approvals. By the time the approval comes, the harm has been caused. Unlike if it's a private firm, a phone call from the chief executive and a board chair and convene an emergency meeting and grant approval for you to spend. But in the case of a country, it goes through series of processes, including approvals from Parliament. As a result of that, the flood mitigation effort may be post facto, as if we didn't want to do. But when you see the minister's explanation, even with a Ganashi, we still have to rely on the contingency funds to make sure that we deal with this issue. And currently procurement is ongoing. So I think that is the greatest takeaway for me. Asking for no more money.
Fantastic. Yes. Your opponents say it's an empty and uninspiring presentation. What's your immediate response to that?
My immediate response is that I agree with them because they are used to supplementary budget and introduction of new taxes during mid-year. But they didn't see any of that. So it is unusual to them. So that's what I'll say to them.
No, they said it's uninspiring. They said it's empty.
How can it inspire somebody who thinks that a mid-year review should come with an introduction of a new tax or a strict compliance with tax administration or supplementary budget? So they were looking for their own points to tick. And one of the points they were expecting was that we should ask for more money or we should bring new taxes. If you remember, they did a press conference before the budget. They highlighted some issues. All those issues that they highlighted were dealt with. And the caution they said was that they are not ready and prepared to approve any new money Minister of Finance is asking for. And the minister didn't ask for any money. So I think that, yesterday, frankly speaking, if you listen to their press conference immediately after the budget, you will know that is not the usual former finance minister we saw. They had to say something, but it was not there. Look at even Afenyo Markin closing remark in seconding the motion for adjournment. You saw that he did not dwell on any substance. He was only just being petty and political. So I think that you measure their resentment based on the counter issues that they are raising. And in all things that they are raising, either they are already been addressed in the budget or they are just doing it for mischief and politics. Exactly, that's what is going on.
Honorable Atta Issah, Member of Parliament for Sanarigu, thank you for obliging us this interview this morning, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
2.5 billion.
Yes, sir.
Honorable Lavo,
Chief.
I see that you're working up the device in front of you, and I'm sure we're about to be bombarded with some heavy information. No? Oh, come on, yeah, but you know you're going to give us some kind of a summary of what transpired at some point in the course of the proceedings. Charlie, 2.5 billion.
Yes, sir.
At the same.
Ngopona daruma bibi aboko ode na cheyedie apomuni yempom de adin akade aka
Me pacho shirt no toy na say the braille.
Yeah, meto material ne wo mamaga ho.
Na tell
na me tailor pamoma me.
Utela no etela na so you designer.
Say no mama ya made na hu aye say wo shop nkwa de a wo designer. But who the see ukon ho now the fact town there we tailor. Sana person we there. Who the see ukon now the nam ye yi there. When she any shop yi bia there oh ya de yi for no. We tailor. But who shop kakra bi oh baby no pempam krum 40 there na otimi ye design kakra bi to bi atade mpe we designer. We fashion designer. This is all the
Okay. Anyway, your initial comments on Nyame Koso Parliament.
Well, as usual, say the main one or say media review. You know, from these two political parties. But say we before crano, but say we say the omade bebano we nim we say oh the bano say womb. So a lot of conversations ekoso. And say or call parliament sooner or kanya and also so the heckling we say and also so etakoso. So some of those things say na and shed that any new. And obi so obi a wonim Alexander Kwame Napenyo marking ye no. You know, even if say can about tribunal bill krana kaba tribunal bill obekofa enkokon kitenkete dia bam when he gets the opportunity. And I say can even enkokon kitenkete project kro obekofa Women's Bank and I say 24-hour economy e dia ba. Nti enra no some of those things. Na enya de wofro.
For you know,
so the least opportunity ono no benya no if ye the ade na to so yen kan we asem kra no be kofa bibi fufuro bi e de aba be kan ti na enye nwanwa and you know minim say emra ne sa na tie de a Henry say minority leader ye man 20 minutes majority